All right, let's jump right in. Every single time you check the weather on your phone or book a flight, or even just see a map pop up in a ride-sharing app, you're actually seeing this silent, incredibly powerful force at work. We're talking about APIs. They're the hidden engines of our digital world, the invisible glue holding literally everything together. And today, we are going to pull back the curtain and figure out what makes them tick.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about that? How on earth does a travel website pull flight information from like a dozen different airlines all at the same time? Or how does your food delivery app know exactly where the restaurant is and how long the driver is going to take? It's not magic, I promise you. It's actually a beautifully structured conversation happening between all these different pieces of software.
And the language they're all speaking is the API, which stands for Application Programming Interface. Really, at its core, it's just a set of rules. Think of it like a contract that says, hey, if you ask me for information in this exact way, I promise I will give you a specific type of information back. It's basically the universal translator for the entire internet. Now, the best way to wrap your head around this, and this is a fantastic analogy, is to think of an API as a waiter in a restaurant. You, the customer, you don't need to march into the kitchen, find the ingredients, and cook your own food, right? Of course not. You just look at the menu, you tell the waiter what you want, and the waiter handles everything else. The API, it's that perfect middleman. But see, that waiter doesn't work alone. There's a whole system, a whole staff, making that restaurant run smoothly behind the scenes. So let's take a look inside that API ecosystem and meet the rest of the staff.
And this image lays it all out perfectly. You've got three main players here. On one side, you have the API consumer. That's the customer. That's you. On the other end is the API provider. That's the kitchen. And right in the middle, you've got this super important piece called the API gateway, which is kind of like the restaurant's host at the front door. So let's break each of these down.
First up, the API provider. This is the kitchen. This is the company or the platform that actually has the data or the service that you want. So think of a weather service that has all the temperature data, or a company like OpenAI that gives you access to its amazing AI models. They are the source of the food. They're doing all the cooking.
Next, you've got the API consumer. That's us. Or, well, more specifically, it's the app that we're using. The consumer is the customer sitting at the table, looking at the menu, and deciding what to order. It needs something from the kitchen, but it can't just barge in there itself. It has to place an order through the proper channels.
And that brings us to the API gateway. This is the restaurant's host, the maitre d'. It's standing at the front door, managing the whole flow of requests. It checks your reservation, that's your authentication. It makes sure the restaurant isn't getting slammed by limiting the number of requests, and it directs your order to the right station in the kitchen. It's a traffic cop and a security guard all rolled into one.
Okay, so we've met the whole crew. Now let's actually follow a single order from the second the customer decides what they want all the way to the moment the food arrives at the table. This is the journey of an API request.
From a bird's eye view, it's a pretty simple four-step dance. The client, our app, makes a request. The system checks to make sure the client is even allowed to ask for that. The server does its thing and gets the data, and finally, a response with that data is sent back. Simple, right? Well, the reality has a few more very important details.
So let's trace this flow right here. See, the most important step is authentication. Before your app can ask for anything, it first has to go log into an authentication server. In return, it gets something called a token. You can think of it like a temporary ID card. So now, when the app makes its real request to the API server, it flashes that token to the API gateway. The gateway looks at the token, makes sure it's legit, and only then does it pass the request along to the server to be fulfilled. So what does the food that comes back from the kitchen actually look like? Well, it's a neatly packaged bundle of data, and most of the time it's in a format called JSON. It's just structured text pairing a label like name with its value, Avinash. This format is super clean, lightweight, and incredibly easy for any application to read and use.
Now, just like how restaurants can specialize in different cuisines, Italian, Mexican, Japanese, APIs also come in different flavors or standards. A company has to decide which style of menu it wants to offer its customers.
And this table breaks down the main options really well. REST is by far the most popular. It's like your favorite neighborhood bistro, flexible, familiar, and uses the standard language of the web. Then there's SOAP. It's older, much stricter. Think of it like a formal, multi-course fine dining experience with a very specific, rigid etiquette. Then you get to modern approaches like GraphQL. This is amazing. It's like a custom salad bar where the customer can ask for exactly the ingredients they want and nothing extra, which is perfect for fast mobile apps. And finally, you have gRPC from Google, which is built for insane speed and efficiency. It's like a high-tech kitchen's direct private communication line. So we know what an API is, we know who the players are, and we know the different styles they come in. But what separates a good API from a bad one? What's the real recipe for success if you're the one building the kitchen? Building an API isn't just a one-time thing you do. It's a continuous life cycle. It starts with design, goes through build and test, and then it enters this constant cycle of deploying, securing, and monitoring. And that ongoing loop right there is the key. A great API is always being improved, always being secured, and always being watched to make sure it's working perfectly for its users.
And that whole life cycle is guided by a set of best practices. A few of these are just absolutely critical. It all has to start with a design-first approach. You plan the blueprint before you write a single line of code. Clear documentation is also a huge one. That's the menu for your restaurant. If other developers can't understand the menu, they can't order anything. And of course, a security-first mindset is completely non-negotiable. You have to have strong locks on the kitchen doors from day one.
So there you have it. From the waiter taking your order to the kitchen preparing your food, APIs are the essential backbone of our connected world. They're what allow innovation to just explode by letting developers build amazing new services on top of platforms that already exist. Understanding this whole process is step one, but it does leave us with one big, really important question. Now that we know how they're built, how in the world do we keep them secure?